Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. Giannina calls out Nick Viall. Giannina on a podcast with Blake Horstmann. Of course, she's from Love is Blind. She's dating Blake. Blake and Nick have had an ongoing beef. She enters the conversation. So now we have Nick Viall and his fiancée, Natalie Joy, having one side of the beef, and now we've got Blake Horstmann and Giannina on the other. Katie Thurston's in the mix. So many people. We've got a whole playlist here. So I'm going to share exactly what was said, but there's a whole playlist of the feud where Joe defends Nick, and then other podcasts slammed Katie. Caitlin Bristow defends Blake. It is a battle royale of what side you're taking, and it's very much worth the listen. You know, I was thinking, oh boy, there's just no content out there, and then I stumbled upon her thanks to some of your DMs. I love it when you guys send me DMs and send me time codes. You said, hey Dave, go to the 27-minute mark, and I do, and you can see the exact moment where Giannina, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, enters the conversation, and Blake tries to not have anything be mentioned, and then they let the cat out of the bag. So let's have a listen to this. Stick around. The whole clip is great, but the last part that I'm going to share with you is just icing on the cake. Have a listen.
It's fun to watch you guys, like the way you interact with each other, because I've been around some couples that are, in the limelight, Bachelor Nation couples, and I'm around them. I'm like,
where's the love?
Why the fuck are y'all together?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I'm like, are y'all just together because it's beneficial for y'all?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you've ever been with someone you don't like, staying together in a relationship because it's beneficial, that sounds idiotic. Like, who would do that? That sounds torturous every single day. But there are couples that are toxic, and maybe they found love on the show and it's not working out in the modern world, and they try their best. There is a couple that has been leaked or rumored to be breaking up soon. We don't know who that is, so we're not speculating, but let's keep listening.
And it makes me question and look at everyone in that world. Yeah. I'm like, what are you dating for? And with you guys, I don't see. I see like you guys just bounce off each other, and it's fun to watch. And I'm over here just kind of in awe. You know what I mean?
Does this exist?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot.
I got some quick questions for you from Instagram write-ins.
Let's do it.
They're a little weird.
They usually are.
By the way, I'm always critical of shows when the audio and the video is not perfect, which isn't perfect here, but I really like this. I'm assuming this is at Tyler's apartment in New York City. The audio is not great. I would upgrade the microphones, but it is a good setup that's far better than these Zoom shows. At least he's trying to get it. He's got a big following here on YouTube already. I think his podcast actually has some legs to it.
Do you think Bachelor or your show, Love is Blind, has positively or negatively affected your mental health?
Oof. Oh, God, so I do think, in a weird way, and this is probably going to surprise some people, in a weird way, it's helped because I've learned how to deal with anxiety, with stress and all that. I had no idea what to do before. So in a weird way, yes, negatively, obviously, I was having mental breakdowns. I was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks, but in a weird way.
And people don't realize he was having the breakdown because of the sort of mischaracterization of who he was that existed out there. We have to remember he was soft Me Too. And I don't say that to make light of the term Me Too, but people were accusing him of violating Kaylin by manipulating her into having sex with him and all these things. I was like, whoa! And at the height of the Me Too movement. So his name was being put out there as a dangerous scumbag, type of thing. That's when he released text messages that proved his case that he was actually not in the wrong. Now, what's interesting is just this past week, he actually was seen with Kaylin, so they've made amends, but Nick Viall has accused Blake of doing the wrong thing by releasing those text messages, which is what they're about to talk about.
I've learned to cope with that. So now if I have them again, I know what to do. I've learned what therapy is, and I've gone to therapy, and I know I have a therapist. So in a weird way, it's helped me, believe it or not, because I then learned to cope with all of that mess.
I feel like you matured from it.
Oh, 100%. And like I said, I was super sheltered. I didn't have an anxiety attack or panic attack until I went on the show. I was always
So Blake went on the show All-Star Shore, which is where he met Giannina. And the reason he went on is because there was a prize they were offering. And because there was a prize for the show, due to the laws of offering a prize, they weren't allowed to manipulate any of the audio or video. So he felt like he wouldn't be mischaracterized on the show. Now, as you remember from Bachelor in Paradise, there were videos of Blake angrily running down the beach, and as it turns out, he was just running to the bathroom. You know what I mean? You ever do something and you're like, why do you look so angry? Angry? I'm not angry at all. This is just how my face looks. So he felt like he was in safer hands on All-Star Shore.
a rub dirt on it kind of guy, you know? And I grew up that way, and I just always thought I was like that. And now I'm not, because I know that those people out there that live with like panic attacks daily, or, you know, that they're the strongest people in the world. They are the strongest people in the world. Oh my God. The first one, when I had one, the night everything happened on Paradise, I was breathing in a bag. I was like half naked on my deck. Like I was just like losing my mind. Yeah, I was like, what is this? I can't breathe.
But that's another thing.
This is where self-harm and terrible things can happen. And we're very fortunate that Blake was able to overcome this and have a support system to help him. But just horrifying. I mean, imagine if this was your son, or imagine if this was your brother. Horrifying to think that someone felt like so attacked emotionally. And it's like, maybe it's because he's a people pleaser, but if you've never been publicly shamed, if you've never been ostracized, you can't possibly know the feeling of what he went through, especially because he felt mischaracterized. It wasn't like he cheated on somebody and he was exposed and he felt guilt. It was like, oh my gosh, they think this of me? What, like, you know?
The thing I hate about Bachelor Nation is people will throw each other under the bus just so they can get a rise in popularity, or they can be on the news. And like, that's why
Tyler says that if you didn't catch that, the thing he hates about Bachelor Nation is people will throw each other under the bus for their own benefit.
Like, I got the hell out of it. I saw how it kind of was, and like, I just don't communicate or like interact with a lot of it, because I just saw how it was a ladder, and everyone was competing to climb.
And Tyler was fortunate enough and privileged enough to get out of it because he had a big following. He was from the golden age of social media, and he was one of the finalists on the show. He didn't have to meddle in Bachelor in Paradise and do all these things because financially he was like set to leave the show.
And you'll get thrown under the bus, and like you had to do things to put you had to put out receipts.
Yeah, I had to show them receipts to even survive, to stay above water.
You know what I mean? And then they're like, "Oh, it's fucked up."
Yeah, and Blake had had a CVS receipt. He's like, "Look at this receipt I've got over here." He's just like doing his taxes.
Shouldn't do that, but no, you shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with.
And the receipt that we're talking about is, of course, the screenshots of his text messages with Kaylin, which proved that she pursued him at Stagecoach or whatever, Coachella. And that he didn't try to lure her or promise her into a relationship and then had sex with her. She actually kind of like drunkenly Ubered to his place when he was saying, "No, don't come over," which made her look horrible. But he wasn't trying to slut shame her. He was trying to say nobody, including Kaylin, corrected the storyline, and therefore nobody cared about my interest here, so he had to fight for himself. It was actually a great moment for people to realize how they can combat a false narrative. You gotta go out, swinging, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, now the situation kind of repeats itself with other people with throwing receipts out. No one says anything.
Oh, you're talking about Nick Viall. Yeah.
All right, so here she talks about Nick Viall. Let's listen one more time. He look at his face. He's like, "Babe, don't do this. Don't get me into another fight, babe."
Situation to begin with.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Yeah.
Well, now the situation kind of repeats itself with other people with throwing receipts out. No one says anything.
Oh, you're talking about Nick Viall. Yeah.
Oh, it's caught on camera. Of course, we go to the playlist, and that was the fact that Nick and Natalie shared private messages that Katie said to him. Nick and fiance exposed Katie's DMs. So then Blake slams Nick for hypocrisy. It goes on. In reality, Steve exposes hypocrisy. Literally, just one thing. Caitlyn defends Blake. One thing after another. The story that keeps on giving. Here's Blake's response to that.
Not drop too many names, but but you're right, and he's an example.
Some spicy shit I know about right there.
Nick Viall, I'm talking to you.
Whoa! Blake goes, "Let's not drop too many names." Giannina goes, "Nick Viall, I'm talking to you." Paging Nick Viall, this is about you.
But you're exactly right. Like, people just are, it's the most cutthroat industry out there, because they are willing to throw whoever they can under the bus to get likes, retweets,
and everyone,
views, whatever it takes.
And everyone polices themselves. Like, and then I was in the mix about it for a little bit, but then I just saw how everyone jumped on each other for every mistake, because it was a way to bury one of them.
Yep.
Like, no one was like lending out a hand to pull anyone up. They're just trying to bury that person, so they can get a little more fame, and they can be right for that minute or that click. Yeah, that click.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My experience on Paradise, and I've talked about this, is like, people ask me often, like, why does everybody bully on Paradise? And I'm like, honestly, it's because if you're doing the bullying, you're not getting bullied. Like, it's such a terrifying environment that like people feel like they have to bully so that they don't get bullied. Like, if somebody else is getting bullied, you're safe.
Yeah.
So it's like,
You're
get
like,
on
oh,
that
sits on
person.
them.
So that person's getting bullied and you're not. It's a very toxic environment. It's just a very, very intense environment.
I mean, it's starting to happen on Love is Blind. I've seen it. I've seen like really rude people come out of it. And I'm like, that's not the culture here. I'm like, keep that shit in Bachelor Nation. Don't bring it over here to Love is Blind. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Love is Blind starting to lose innocence a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm like, whoa, I was not expecting this from y'all. But I've had my very, very, very close calls to just not putting people, and not putting them down, but putting them in their place and just being like, actually, I've done this, and you have zero right to call somebody out on what you're calling them out on X, Y, and Z, because the emotional turmoil of these shows, it's already enough. Like, why pile it on? And it gets, I'm honestly very, very disappointed with some of the things that I've seen because.
So, of course, she's still talking about Nick Viall. Now, by the way, Giannina here, I'm not seeing it when I go to her Instagram page, but on my phone, I'm able to see she has 2 million followers on Instagram. And you might think, why does this matter? Like, what's the big deal? Well, it really comes down to, it's much easier, and then we're not able to see, maybe there's a glitch happening in the system here. We're not able to see on our desktop, but what it comes down to is it's much easier to talk trash or bully someone. And I'm not saying Nick's doing that. I'm just saying he called out Blake, and then he kind of did something that essentially was what he was calling Blake out for. So you could call it hypocrisy, but Nick's got 1 million followers. And what you have to remember is Giannina comes from the Netflix world, which is international. So her following is actually double the size here. And she's not afraid to speak her mind. And we love this about anyone in any of these communities that aren't afraid to speak their mind. Speaking truth to power is about not being afraid to share what you think and, how something makes you feel. So clearly the conversations that must go on behind the scenes I would love to be sitting at that dinner table with a glass of red wine as they discuss their true thoughts.
Because like literally nobody has any right to compare experiences truly, or to even have your own personal opinion, because it's really fucked up.
Just imagine how cool it would be if like we did have each other's back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, reality TV, it would be so much cooler. Like the culture and the family would be so much cooler if like it wasn't cutthroat.
It'd be cool if you did.
We got your back. I think it'd be amazing. But.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about it like from my own experience. Like I was always making jokes, and they were very lighthearted jokes, and it was
so I want to end it on that. Blake says, wouldn't it be nice if we got each other's back? And look, I get it. This is just kind of how it works. Bachelor Nation is a microcosm of just how we are culturally, with society, different groups that we're in, nationally speaking, sports teams, regional, political, all these different divides that we have. You want to feel like you're included in a group, and therefore you'll maybe do what you need to do to make that happen. Now, of course, Nick, look, he's got a successful podcast. He's built the podcast, and he's built his career on not being afraid to share these opinions. So that's what he does. The collateral damage from that will be the people that fight back and say, you got it all wrong. If you're going to have any sort of moral barometer over what should or shouldn't be done or said within the community, and then you make a mistake, we're coming for you. And that's kind of where you go. Now, like me personally, I tried my best not to be hypocritical, but like maybe I'll condemn someone and then do the same thing. Like by all means, call me out. That's just kind of the community. I'm sure Nick respects that game. When you take away the egos and in the personal sort of insults, I'm sure he respects in some way or another what Blake has done. He's built a career outside of Bachelor Nation, which is important. And of course, Giannina has, they're kind of in a happy relationship. They found a Bachelor Nation adjacent relationship. We're happy for them. If you want to see the making of this video, I did it on today's Patreon. We actually got a voice note sent to us from Katie Thurston. I've been approved to share it on Patreon, but not publicly. If you want to hear what she has to say, it was sort of breaking news. You can go check that out on today's Patreon. Link in the comment section below. I'll be back this afternoon with Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast. Otherwise, unless there's any other breaking news that comes out, that's it for me this week. Hit the subscribe button if you want bonus weekend content, and I'll try to get that over to you. All right, folks, have a good one. We'll talk to you later.